Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode in my adventure in my travel vlog. This week, we're gonna talk about my trip to Grand Teton National Park. It's one of the most gorgeous national parks in the US. If you don't have an actual list of national parks that you prefer or like a bucket list, this might be a best chance to start a bucket list of national parks that you wanted to visit. And I definitely want to visit like so many national parks. If I get a chance, I want to visit all 63 national parks that the US has, and of course the other national parks outside the US. The world is like so big and so amazing, and although the national parks are some of the most preserved places where you can find natural habitat just being an intact place, and it is so awesome to ever go and visit a national park. And there's a lot of work that goes into it, so if you don't have a national park annual pass, I definitely recommend having an annual pass. It helps even if you don't go to all of the national parks in a given year, which some people do try to go to all the national parks in a certain given year. But even if you don't, even if you go to like one or two national parks in a given year, I definitely recommend having the annual pass for the national parks, and that covers all of the great work that they do at the park. Now, there are so many other ways to contribute, but if you would like to, the easiest way and the most preferred, I would suggest just getting the national park annual pass. And now they do have some of the free days to go into a park, but it's usually like crowded on those holidays. So always have a plan and make sure that you plan ahead. And there are some off seasons and on season, like there are seasons, and there's times when some of the parks are off season. So we'll cover all of that for Grand Teton in this video. Now, Grand Teton is in the state of Wyoming. If you have not been to Wyoming, it's a gorgeous place. Like, it's amazing. And Grand Teton has been on my bucket list for, oh gosh, for like 4 or 5 years at that point. I've seen like the photos of just the park itself and even like the wildlife. There's so much in Grand Teton that you could cover, and there's lots of places to hike, and there's so much for like if you like biking, they have an amazing trail that you could take your bike and you could like go cycling. It's so cool to see all the ski resorts they have. At least two ski resorts that I know, one in the Teton Village and one right by the Jackson Hole, like this, like the town. So there's two amazing resorts, ski resorts. So those ones you have to go during the season, which might be from like mid-May. Typically they close down the park. Just the park itself is like open all year round, but some of the roads and some of these ski resorts and the activities, they're closed down during the off season, so you might not have all of them. Let's Before we jump into all of that, let's dive into like how how to get to Grand Teton. Now, if you are flying, the closest would be the Bozeman, and it's always a very common spot for both travelers going to Yellowstone and to Grand Teton. So, if you're planning to go to Yellowstone National Park, you might as well combine Grand Teton because they're both quite close enough. And during peak seasons, you might want to like assess the crowd because there's two routes for to get from Yellowstone to Grand Teton. One of them is like an hour and a half. It's less than 100 mile. The other one is like a bit longer of drive. The other one from like West Yellowstone, you would have to like go south and then head east towards the Grand Teton. So that's like a 127-mile long journey. And you would have to go through the Teton Pass. And that's a little bit more strenuous if you are not used to driving on the pass, like on the mountain pass. You might be struggling, but if you can, to get to Jackson, like the town, you could just it's literally like 80 miles away, but it's like an hour and a half drive. Although it's like 80 miles, it's all like mountainous terrain, so keep that in mind. But the other alternate route is a little bit longer, but again, it's dependent on what's going on in the region. Sometimes one or the other roads might be closed, and just keep that in mind. It's an area that's prone to avalanches and it's prone to rocks that's sliding down, so you might find a rock all of a sudden in like your path. So just keep that in mind. And it's also a place that's prone to bears. You can see if you're lucky, if you're lucky, you could see grizzly bears and black bears when you head out to Grand Teton. So always be prepared. I wasn't planning on hiking because I went during like the off season, but people still suggested me to carry like the bear spray. It's always safe to have the bear spray and never needed than to be in a situation where you encounter the bear and you regret not having the bear spray. So always keep a bear spray. And the thing about bear spray is you could just get it like at the shops there, REIs out there. So as soon as I went, so I flew from Detroit to Bozeman, Yellowstone Airport, and then as soon as I walked out the airport, I headed straight to like an REI, and I picked up some hiking gear and the bear spray. So the thing about bear spray is if you don't use it, it's not refundable. So once you buy the bear spray, they're non-refundable, but it's a good amount to spend for safety. Of course, you cannot play with your safety, and always know not to leave food in the car or in the place that you like travel or hike. Just don't leave food scraps. That's common sense. Like, and always dispose of the trash in the designated trash place. They have specialized spaces to put the trash in that deters the bear, but always use the bear spray at the last resort and know how to tackle, not tackle, like how to react when you do encounter a bear. And yeah, just keep it in handy. And if nothing is gonna help, try to use it and run as far as away as you can. And I'll also like learn the instructions on how to use the bear spray because it will be terrible if you accidentally spray it on yourself. So keep the direction of wind in your mind and don't point it at yourself or be like in the opposite direction. And so the wind would spray right on you. So keep those in mind. Now, those bears, the sprays, they are not, well, they're not gonna kill the bear. So they are gonna disarm the bear if you do encounter in that situation. So if you do run into that situation and you are thinking, oh well, I cannot harm wildlife. This is one of the critical situations. Well, if you do encounter like a black bears typically are afraid of humans, from what I've heard, and the grizzlies are more aggressive. So if you do encounter a bear, whether grizzly or black bear, um, especially if it's just a black bear, you try to like um, announce that you were there and show yourself like bigger, and then the black bear is supposed to scram. But if you do encounter a grizzly and you do the same, and the grizzly starts to get aggressive or attack, that's when you try to use the bear spray and get the hell out of there. But again, the encounter part is, if you are lucky, a lot of times the animals are so much more smarter than we are, and they know well how to hide, and they're not gonna be prowling on the streets as much. This is all just like just in case scenarios, because you're going to a place covered in wilderness, and whatever township, whatever development that's going on, it's still like in the middle of the wilderness, so you are going to much um, wild. So just keep that in mind. And Jackson is an interesting town. Now, I did spend like just one day in Grand Teton, which was still like a lot. I was staying at West Yellowstone, and I started pretty early in the morning and headed straight to Jackson Town. And I had my lunch there at like a Mexican restaurant. And Jackson Town is really small and it's so beautiful. And since I was there in the off season, I didn't have much crowd. Yet I chose the hostel that was available. It's called Cash House. I always wanted to try how hostels look like, and it was an amazing experience because this one kind of So this one was interesting because it kind of felt like a Japanese pod hotel, and I've heard so much about Japanese pod, like sleeping pods, in Japan, and I was always interested in like going to one of them. And this one is definitely so much more luxurious. If you have not been in hostels, this might be a good attempt for you to try. Now, I've traveled in um, like trains in India where there are lower berth, upper berth, so there's like sleeping pattern, like you don't like disturb people in the lower berth, and if you're traveling on the upper berth, you kind of climb up, and there's an unset curfew time. There's unspoken rules that you follow, and there's a bit of manners that you adhere to. So it wasn't complete new or strange to me, but it was still strange in some sense. And this was definitely a lot more spacious. And now it was just me that was traveling, so this was like a queen sized bed. And even like two people can be in that bunk, but since it was just me, I had the whole bunk to myself, and you can see it was pretty spacious. Just the sleeping pod itself, so to speak, was spacious. They had charger. There was like a small light and a fan, so it was still comfortable. And there's also like curtains that provide privacy. And there's like a common area, and then there's like an area where you have like so the common area itself was like quite big. So even if everyone who was in the hostel at the point were to gather in the common area, there was still enough space. There's multiple couches, multiple like seating areas, and then there's also like a dining area. And you also have like I think a TV in the common area, but not in the sleeping area. And you have the locker section, and then right next to the locker section you have the restrooms and the showers. Now the restrooms and the showers are a little bit unique, and since it is shared, but you do get like the whole unit to yourself, and that the door goes all the way from the top to the bottom, so it's not like a common um like restroom where the doors are like halfway. This one is like the door goes all the way from the top to the bottom. And then the locker, you do get like an assigned locker, and you get to keep that locker and all of the stuff in that locker. And I did see people bringing their ski stuff. I don't know, this was during an off season, so I don't know how they went skiing, or maybe they were also kind of like disappointed that they couldn't go skiing. But yeah, you could bring your ski gear, you could bring literally like all of your stuff. There's enough space there, and everyone's kind of like chill. If you have never been to a hostel, um, it might be different for each of the groups. So the group that I was in at the time, everyone was pretty quiet and they all kept to themselves. I was expecting it to be like a noisy environment, but I got the opposite. I was pretty much the only one who was extroverted and said hi to everyone. I don't usually bother people with like, oh, what are you doing? Where are you from? None of those questions. So I was just like, hey, how are you? Hey, what's up? And that's it. And everyone was pretty much like to kept them kept to themselves, and everyone followed. There are some rules in this cash house, and everyone kind of like followed it. They have like quiet time, and so everyone like followed that. Now the quiet time doesn't mean you cannot do anything, it's just you have to be quiet when you are in that area. So that's pretty much it. And there's always people coming in cleaning constantly, so it's clean, and it's like squeaky clean, like all of the areas are like squeaky clean. And they have a front desk right upstairs, so this is kind of like in the basement of the hotel Anvil. Anvil is like a full sized hotel, I guess, and this one's like their hostel unit. So you do like get into the annual hotel and the cafe and check in, and then they get you the card and all the locker and all the instructions, your Wi-Fi password, all that stuff, and then you head downstairs to the cash house. It's really nice place. I couldn't recommend this place enough, although I'm not like sponsor or anything like that. This was a really nice spot, and it's so close to Grand Teton. I made like multiple trips to the mountain and back, and that was like the most fun part for me because this cash house, it was situated in Jackson, and which is this town itself is like a nice spot if you're going into Grand Teton and if you like to rest and recoup. If you're planning on camping and stuff, you know the drill, like you don't have to check in anywhere. But if you would like to like stay at a place, have a home base, and then you want to travel, I would definitely recommend picking a spot in Jackson. Although I do want to say that Jackson is really expensive. Like I was at the Target in Jackson, and they have like nice Starbucks and all that. But yeah, everything is expensive in Jackson. So the hotels are quite expensive, and they all get like booked up pretty early, and everyone there is either traveling. I don't think any of the locals really stay there. So now most of the people who Jackson is a really nice town, but it is very expensive. And most of the people I know or I talk to, they were always like traveling from outside of Jackson. And I also like read this on like the news article when there was a collapse on the Teton Pass back in 2024. I think it was like June 2024. There was like a collapse on the Teton Pass, and pretty much like the all of the population who were all of the like working population was essentially like cut off from their homes because they none of them who worked in Jackson were from Jackson. Most of them were living outside, and they had to use the Teton Pass to get from their home to Jackson. So the economy itself was kind of like cut off because the Teton Pass had collapsed. Like there was an avalanche, and the Teton Pass was like gone, and it's all like rebuilt and it's all up, but yeah, so everything is expensive there. Just keep that in mind. And um, if you do plan, but if you do like get to stay there, you are guaranteed lots and lots of rest because the Teton, the Grand Teton National Park, is like literally 5 minutes from from the Jackson town. Like 5 minutes, literally like 5 minutes. It's like 4.5 mile drive, and you cannot get anything better than that, I think. And the drive in and of itself is like so amazing. That's why I said if you have a bike and if you are an avid biker, like if you love biking, cycling, like you need to do that because they have like a parallel road, a trail, and you could take your bike there and you could like go on and enjoy the view. It's so spectacular. And now inside the Grand Teton National Park, there are a few different like spots. And since I was there like during the off season, there were some that were closed because the snow was still there and the snow was still like melting. But there are like a few points that you could get to and visit, and then the lake was still like covered with thin ice, and that was so much more amazing just to see the lake still like covered in ice, and we have this amazing grand spectacular mountain rising above you, and you're just like there in awe just because like how beautiful the mountain is. And yeah, Grand Teton is so great. And I did like eventually like I after I checked in into the cash house, I did drop off my stuff. I took a shower, and then I headed into the Grand Teton National Park because of course. And then I was there probably until like sunset, not exactly till sunset. I was trying to like get out by the time the sun sets, and I was almost at the end of the Grand Teton when I did like find like some spots to wait and take photos during the sunset, and there were other like photographers trying to get wedding photos and stuff. So the sunset itself was amazing, but I think the sunrise is the main game because the sun sets on the west, right? So you don't really get much of the awe with the sunset, but the sunrise, like the sun hitting early in the morning on the facade of the Grand Mountain. So that's when you have to be there. So I went back. I was there for the sunset, but I didn't like get the full enjoyment because it was like the opposite direction. So I did head back and had a good dinner, and then I went and walked around like the town. Now, with the parking situation, there's like a few rules again. There's different set of parking rules everywhere, right? So in Jackson, like I could park right across from the um, cash house during the daytime. So there's no restrictions for that. But then after 8 or like after sunset, something like that, you would have to find an actual parking garage and then park it. You cannot park it outside. And this applies to all of the cars and stuff. So I did have to like find a parking garage, which is again still not um too far away. It was probably a couple blocks down, and I parked it in the garage. And yeah, I did have like a really great meal, and I think it was probably like a Chinese restaurant. I had like fried rice and had some extra white rice because my stomach wasn't really great that day. So that definitely helped me like having a really amazing fried rice and it was very nice, like soothing. I also had their tea. Oh my God, the Chinese tea. The herbal teas are so great. So yeah, definitely helped my stomach. Um, and I parked the car, and then I was like heading back to the cash house. And I have to say, once it's dark, it's kind of like a different vibe in Jackson because you're right next to like the mountain range still. And that's when I started fearing, okay, what am I seeing? Is that a dog or is it a bear? Is that a dog or is it a bear? This is what constantly kept going inside my mind. I was constantly like scanning around to see, okay, is that a dog or is that a bear? And that kept on like going inside my mind. And also sometimes it was like, is that a dog? Is that a bear? Or is that a man? And anyway, eventually I did head and find my hotel or my hostel. And then I hung up all of the stuff in there. I was pretty much almost done for the day. I took another nap, but wasn't really like feeling sleepy because there was still like so much to do. And having, okay, having your base like 5 minutes from the mountain is a dangerous thing because I wanted to go back to see the stars and to like try to capture the lights, the galaxy lights and all that. But I was also like, what if there's a bear? But I was constantly like kept going doing like I wanted to do this. This is what I'm here for. I wanted to go get a photo of the stars, and then also like, what if there's a bear? And it's super dark. You can't even see if there's a bear or not. So that happened for a while. But if you are interested and if you are like probably traveling with another person, or if you are will adversed in how to deal with all the wildlife, and if you know how to deal with all the wildlife, and if you were fond of camping and all that, you should, I guess, try to take photo of like the solar system, or the stars in the night sky. And I think that would have been like the most amazing thing like you could do. But yeah, I was afraid of both black bear and grizzly bear. And it was pretty cold at that time, so I was like, okay, fine. And the other thing I also did was I went to the Teton village, trying to like find if I could go up the gondola ride. So they had the Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. It's kind of like 12 miles away from downtown Jackson, but it still had people in the resort and stuff, but they don't have well, they didn't have it at that time. They were gonna only open it on like the rides on May 17th. So again, the other thing about going somewhere during the off season. They did have like the hotels and stuff. And also like I think the restaurants were open, but they were still not operating the gondola rides. So that's another thing. They also had another ski resort called the Snowy Mountain, I think. I didn't even like bother to go because it's gonna be the same both places. But the other nice spot is like, okay, there's quite a bit you could like cover by walking downtown Jackson, but I would definitely recommend the $1 Million Cowboy Bar. If you were not a fan of the bar, you could just like shop outside of the gift shop, but they are nice. Like that's probably like one of the most famous thing for nightlife in downtown like Jackson. Also did like some shopping. There's also some shopping centers downtown. So I did go there and like pick up some souvenirs and stuff. Um I also got like t-shirts for literally everyone I know. Uh, so I also got like t-shirts downtown, and they were like $10 a piece. So that was a steal, I think. And the overall like Teton trip was amazing. But I wasn't like down there. Like I already um did go into the park once that day, and then I was back and I was done exploring the downtown. And then the next day, I had my alarm up like for super early in the morning because I wanted to catch the sunrise because sunrise was gonna hit right on the mountain facade. So I did want to like go for that, and oh my God, it was so amazing. Like every single stop that I did, like, and that wasn't the best part was like there wasn't even like any people to watch the sunrise. There were barely like one or two cars. So I was probably like, very lucky to go into that to watch sunrise in um Grand Teton National Park. And like every corner, like every spot along the mountain facade. So if you have the Grand Teton, so if you have the Grand Teton, every single point, it was just so magical and so amazing, and I can't even like explain how much amazing it was. And once I got to almost pretty much like the end of the national park, I made my way back towards the hotel, and I was probably like up at like 5:30 at least, and I was back at the cash house by like 10 o'clock, and I had to take a nap because I was tired. But then I was back up and back into the park again at like 11 a.m. So I probably like took a nap, took like an hour long nap, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, so it was really nice having a spot just like 5 minutes down the road, and you could go and take a break. And oh my God, I Grand Teton was the place where I saw like hundreds and hundreds of bisons, and it was just so amazing. Like I had not seen that many bisons even in Yellowstone Park, and I was at Yellowstone just like the day before. So it was great. Like I saw so much wildlife just in one single day in Grand Teton, and all of the like the bisons, they were just like grazing in on the grass, and it was such a wide landscape, and you have to be in person to just take it all in. And um yeah, just it takes a while to take it all in. So I'm glad I went back a couple more times and not just go once and be done with it. So once I was done with those two trips, on the next day, I headed back to my hotel. I was like thinking to myself that I'm okay, I'm done, blah blah blah. And I checked out, but I still wasn't done. I still kind of headed back to Grand Teton. Mind you, I still had like 2.5 hour drive back to Yellowstone, where I was gonna go and stay for that rest of the day. But I still had to go see Grand Teton and say goodbye. So I did like go just until like to the like the entrance or the first stopping, and then I kind of headed back. I was still not ready to leave Grand Teton, but it was gonna start snowing the rest of the day, the rest of the evening, so I had no choice but to like return before the weather got bad, especially because I had to cross the mountain pass and I had like a 2.5 hour drive. So as I was getting out of Grand Teton and heading towards West Yellowstone, I was driving west and then up north. The clouds were kind of like coming in from the east, so it was still like covering the Grand Teton, and it was almost covered in like rain clouds and like snow clouds and all that. And then it was kind of coming towards Yellowstone too, like towards West Yellowstone, where towards West Yellowstone where I was staying. So I was glad I made that choice to leave at that time that I left, because as soon as I got to West Yellowstone, as soon as I got to my hotel in West Yellowstone, it started snowing. It started snowing a little bit earlier too, but as soon as I got there, it started snowing pretty bad. And I was glad to like make that call and get into the Yellowstone before it was. So that was the grand tour that I had of Grand Teton National Park, and definitely I recommend adding that to your bucket list, and especially if you guys are going to Yellowstone, which I heard a lot of people do go to Yellowstone and not go to Grand Teton, and I think they are missing out. Grand Teton is such an amazing gem. It's not even like a hidden gem or anything. It's such a majestic mountain up on the Rockies, and you definitely have to visit it. And just as I briefly touched about Yellowstone, in my next video, as the series continues, we will be talking about Yellowstone National Park. So tune in, and bye for now.